All right, so here we go. We're going to go through this hand history, and there's no structure. I have not looked at this. I'm just going to go through and give my thoughts on the situations as they happen, and we will see what comes up, okay? So let's see here. I am going to check and see what hands anything happens with here. So it's the early stages. The HUD that you see up is to the left. It is with the yellow background, number of big blinds. Then of course it's the abbreviated name, number of hands that we have, and then the total aggression frequency, which basically just gives an idea of post-flop tendencies. And actually, while I'm on that, let's take a look here at your stats. So 500 hands, it's not a bad sample of hands. Definitely can start to see some trends in that. And this is from just 2 hand histories that I'm going to review. So my first thoughts are looking at this, and again, assuming a decent sample size. I feel like we always have to say that just with the way, samples work and if you're analyzing numbers. So decent sample size here. And the first thing I see, the top section, is VPIP, PFR, and 3-bet. Kind of the 3 main things that people know, the basic stats that will come on every HUD. And now my first glance, the reason I, in my HUD, have this sectioned off the way I do is because I like to have this top section to kind of color code people. It immediately puts me in the right, I feel like, arena typically. Now looking at these stats, I'm going to assume that this hero is a tighter player. Okay, running 17, 13, 5, in my opinion, that is just way too tight. This is a player who is typically, in my experience, going to have a hard time getting value in certain situations. Just not aggressive enough for people to make enough calling mistakes. Against tight opponents, it is just easier to make big laydowns because they're just not making a lot of bluffs. They're looking at the 3-bet PF, meaning pre-flop, 3-bet pre-flop at 5%. To give you an idea, 3% of hands, and right here the 5%, right? But 3% of hands is jacks plus ace king. All right, so now you add a couple more things, ace queen suited, 10s, and ace queen offsuit, we're at 5%. Okay, and at that point, if you're only 3-betting 5% of your hands, it's a very specific 3-bet range. Honestly, the way these stats for most regs in a full ring game should look, it's going to be a little bit closer to 20, 15, and 8, 9, 10. All right, 22. I think that through a large sample, me personally, I run 22, 17, 9, 22, 17, 10. So, and a lot of other good, strong regs are going to be like that. But so looking at 17, 13, 5, you can see there's a lot of opportunity to be playing more hands and exploiting some situations. So this, for me, I'm immediately tagging this player as tight. I'm going to look to exploit them. I'm going to look to take their big blind. I'm going to look to float their C-bets because I know that they're going to typically not be aggressive post-flop in a lot of situations. So this is just the very first thing that I see. And then now going through the rest of the stats here, the next thing I like to look at is where are they raising from? Because position is power, right? And in poker, that's huge. So I'd like to see their raise first, meaning it folds to them, where they're raising from, how often they're raising from there. And typically what I'm looking for is a progression that goes like this. As we're in early, follow the mouse here, as we're in early position, and we move into later position, we want to slowly raise more and more hands. So it should be like that with these percentages. So let's go across here and look. And we see 15% from early position, not too bad. We want to see that steady increase, 22%, 27%, and then 26%. So, as you can see, we kind of plateau in late position. And even in middle position, we're not too far off, raising relatively similar percentages here. So this goes more so like, let's say like this, and then it actually dips a little. Okay, so this progression, and typically when I see this, what this means is that this player who is not raising enough in the cutoff and button, these numbers should and could be much closer to 35, 40% in the cutoff and 50% on the button. All right, so you can see there's a big discrepancy here. And typically what this means is that this player here is a little bit overly conscious of the way that people are responding out of the blinds. They might even be a bit intimidated and concerned about getting 3-bet, and so they choose to just play tighter in late position. A lot of the time I've found that people who don't raise enough in late position are aware that, oh, it's obvious, and you kind of know you're supposed to, and then they start to manufacture in their head that, oh, everybody knows that, and so they're going to fight back at me, they're going to defend, blah, 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 all that stuff. And yes, sometimes that happens, but the fact of the matter is position is power. If you are dipping and raising less on the button than you are in almost middle position or cutoff, that is a problem. Position is power. You need to be applying pressure to the people who have a strategic disadvantage, that being out of position, to you when you're in position. Okay, this is an immediate room for improvement, an area that needs to be focused on raising in late position, confidently knowing what you want to raise fold, what you want to raise call, what you want to raise maybe 4-bet if somebody 3-bets you. But the fact of the matter is, this is a huge issue right here. Okay, again, we want to see this with the positional raising, and we are seeing more like this. All right, so that's the next thing I see. This person is intimidated and scared in late position, and now what that also translates to, for me, somebody who's looking at these things, analyzing and thinking about them, is this person is probably more of a non-confrontational player. If they're going to be shying away from the best position to raise in poker, they're probably going to be non-confrontational in a lot of other spots. Can probably bluff this person off of situations where I know exactly what their range of hands looks like, and that is very problematic if you're playing against good players. So with that said, I'll move on to the next thing. Now, looking at the when they raise first, how often they fold to 3-bet here, 50%, and again, we're assuming a good sample so that you can understand, because yes, if you look at the individual, this is only 8 hands that they've been 3-bet, but ignore that for now for the understanding of, if you're looking at this and you have Poker Tracker and you have a large sample, I want you to know what you're looking for, okay? So assuming throughout any time I'm talking about hands, a good sample, all right? Looking at this 50% fold to 3-bet, very exploitable. And again, it's leaning back towards the non-confrontational spirit, we'll call it. Now let's see here where we're folding to 3-bets. On the button. Literally, we have so much opportunity in late position here that we're passing up. We raise, we get 3-bet, don't know what to do, fold. So again, this is a huge, huge issue. We need to, obviously, as we're growing in poker, we grow our comfortability in situations. We get better and we don't shy away as much. This late position stuff needs to be focused on. Folding the 3-bet, again, kind of just reiterates the non-confrontational spirit that we currently have. Going down here, calling a pre-flop raise, 9%. This is pretty low. This should be probably around 15%. Anything over 20% is typically too much. So calling a pre-flop raise here, we are not calling. We probably have a very specific calling range. It's probably too tight. There's a lot of more hands that we can be flatting and playing post-flop. I definitely know, based on the email that I had received from this hero, that they do need to grow their post-flop game. They're quite aware of that, and you could definitely tell here it looks like a bunch of ranges are not where they need to be. Calling is too tight. Look at this big blind here, only calling 19% in the big blind, and then folding the late position steal 71%, not getting out of line at all from the small blind. So again, not defending blinds, and basically it looks like this player, which we already knew from this top part, is taking a very non-confrontational, shy away from things. Like, honestly, this call, any pre-flop raise in the big blind should be at least 35%. So seeing it at 19, if I were looking at my HUD stats at this player, I am going to raise this player's big blind all the time. I do not care what it is, anything like that. I'm raising, I'm playing this person in position, I'm 3-betting them. Like, there's just so many ways to go at this, and this is because it's too obvious that you're playing a tight strategy here. The limping, this is actually fine. So we're not going to touch on that much. Limp fold. Again, we're limping. We're just shying away from confrontation. Another thing. Fold to flop c-bet 78% of the time. So basically, we're going to connect in some way with the board 2/3 of the time. This fold to flop c-bet at 78%. This is an absolute print against this player. If I raise and this person calls, I do not care what I have. A bet against this opponent who folds to flop c-bet 78% of the time is profitable. Okay, this is way too exploitable. Okay, we're playing way too bashful here. That is just way too exploitable. Calling flop c-bet in position. Assuming the same sample is about the same, we should be floating more in position because people are over c-betting. Let's see, we go down to c-bet flop half the time. For a player like this type, currently a very tight player, we need to be c-betting more. We need to be exposing ourselves to some post-flop situations. C-betting half the time for somebody who's just going to give up every time. Right now, the frequency that people are betting turns when we do not c-bet is much higher than it has been in the past. So against somebody who's basically giving up every time they don't have a super strong hand here, you probably should be leaning towards c-betting more, because when you don't, you're just giving up and you're completely exposed. Versus somebody like you, I'm getting to this point, let's say we get into a hand together, when you don't c-bet, I'm betting turn and river, and I know you cannot call the river bet. Okay, you might call the turn, you're going to fold there a ton, but when you check back there, you just do not have a big hand the majority of the time. Now, one thing I will say, sometimes you are trapping because you're playing non-confrontational, and you know when you bet people are folding, so you might actually check and trap a big hand here, but that is not the way to make chips, and I guarantee when you make big hands, you're probably frustrated because you don't get paid off enough. So yeah, anyway here, and then look, just to illustrate my point, I didn't even look, fold to turn bet 71% of the time. We check back flop, we don't have it. When people bet the turn, we're folding heaps of the time. Again, I didn't even see this stat, but I knew it was going to be something like that based on the information I already have here. So let me go down here. We have not check raised once in this sample, which is rare for me to see. I don't typically run across this, but again, this all ties back into the non-confrontational strategy that is being played by this hero currently. It's not good, just way too tight, way too tight. When I say not good, it's still got a lot of room for improvement, okay? Because at least one thing that I will say here is there's a lot of hand histories and people that I've worked with where it's like, oh man, this person is all over the place. Like, we need to reel it in here, we need to reel it in here, we need to extend here. And so this actually, from a solid foundation, tight, super tight type of place, is not bad. It's good to have this in your roots, but we need to grow. We need to expand out from this strategy in a lot of ways. So then we can continue down. Not doing any donk, flopping, calling river bets, and winning when we have, because basically only time we're getting to the river, we have towards the top of our range of hands, meaning some of our better hands, you know, because we always have a range of hands that we should have in situations. So yeah, and we have a higher one at showdown, and again, because the only time we're playing is when we have it and we hit and stuff, so that makes sense with everything. So that is the snapshot here, 500 hands. I hope that's helpful, and yeah, that's what I'm getting from this right now. So we will continue forward. Now, honestly, looking at the HUD stats, I feel like I can know what hands are going to be played. So this one here, there's 248 big blinds deep. We have position. I would advocate for you to open this. You need to start getting into the rhythm and taking advantage of your position. You know, it's not that great of a hand, but you have position. They don't know what you have. Okay, so we'll go past that one. I would have played it likely A7 suited. We fold. This is a call. This is too tight. We have the nut flush draw here. Somebody's opening. Yes, it's a 6x open, but look, we are 200 plus big blind deep. And when we're playing this deep, we want hands that have high implied value. So what I mean by that is that when we hit a flush, we want to make sure we get paid off. When we hit a set, we want to make sure that there are enough chips for us to get paid off for all the times that we miss and we check fold. We want to be able to win a big enough pot So to help negate the losses. So being 200 some big blinds deep, we should be calling pairs, these suited hands, things like that. Like we can be splashy early in these tournaments with hands that could win us big pots. So to just fold here, I think is something we need to reconsider. All right, big blind, call, call. This is a situation where it's nice to have a pocket pair. Everybody is 200 plus big blinds deep. Alright, so we decide to raise here the 8-9 suited. We get 3-bet. We call super deep. This person c-bets pot, and we fold. In this situation, I think that's fine. But one thing I know that we are highly likely to not be considering right now is the fact that we have some, if this person bets smaller, we have some good backdoor draws here. Any diamond, any 6, any 10 are going to be good cards for us. So we also need to start thinking about that in situations. Not just how our hand immediately hit this board and, oh, I missed, I'm gone. But we need to think about how often our hand can improve on certain turns. And this is actually not a terrible flop for this hand. Just some food for thought. We're not going to want to make like huge drastic changes. But my goal now with this video, after looking at the HUD stats, is to expand your thinking, to open your mind to some new concepts, and to help you comfortably step out of your comfort zone, if that makes sense. All right. So we got a raise. Okay, we call, good. No, everybody is still super deep. Good fold. We're not playing that. We're not playing this. I would imagine I might get splashy in here with almost position here in the cutoff to a raise. Again, everybody is super deep here. This is a hand that can crush in dreams, but folding it is fine, especially if you're kind of lacking in your post-flop confidence. I think as our post-flop confidence grows, we can start to play more hands confidently. All right, so we raise, we check, they check, we bet, and we take it down. So at this point, I don't know the exact thought process. I'm making a lot of assumptions. But here, I dig it. We could check, and we would check like ace-king, some ace-highs, things like that. The ace comes, we can bet it. When Brizzo checks the flop here, this is a big thing to think about. And the practice here that I will advocate for you trying to think about, because you mentioned you need to figure out how to range people and think about things post-flop, I believe in your email. Something that we need to think about here is putting yourself in other people's shoes. Once you get into that practice, it will help you understand what people are doing much, much better, and it will give you the opportunity to make better decisions from your seat. So one big thing here, I'm just going to keep this one simple to start thinking about. You raise, you check here, and Brizzo 21-23 checks behind. What does that mean? Put yourself in their shoes. What hands would you not check here? And one of the hands that most people would not check here is a Queen X, because there's a flush draw, possible straight draw, overcards. If you had King Queen here, you called a raise. Are you checking this flop? The majority of people are not. So that's what I mean by putting yourself in other people's shoes. So once we do that now, we get to this turn, and yes, they could have an ace, but we very well could have an ace. But one thing to note going to the turn is this person does not, the majority of the time, have a queen. We start there, and as we gather more information, as we go turn, river, it starts from pre-flop. Pre-flop, flop, turn, river. We are gathering little chunks of information and then making assessments and then deciding to play our hand from there. So on this flop, we learned something very important. They do not have a queen, okay? So you bet here and take it down. And I'm going to click through all of these. Sometimes we would just like look at the hands that were played, but I think this is important after looking at the stats. I would have raised this one here. We are still super deep, super early. You know what I mean? 159 big blinds. We are not the shortest stack. Shortest stack has 100 big blinds. So still, this hand is too pretty to be folding. I would rather raise the Jack-10 suited than the sevens. All right, Jack-10 suited has more post-flop playability. Think about this. Here's another concept. Okay, so we fold the Jack-10, And in a very, under the gun, we fold Jack 10 under the gun +1, but we raise 7s under the gun, right? So very similar positions, both early position, but we choose to raise the 7s. Now, one thing to take into consideration as far as hands that you're opening and that you're concerned about and the post-flop anxieties you might currently be carrying, look, Jack 10 suited has way more playability post-flop than 7s. So what I mean by that is when you raise 7s here, and you do not hit a 7, the majority of the time there's overs. You can't improve. It sucks. You have to bluff, blah, 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 with these pairs, these little medium and lower pairs. You don't catch a lot of boards where, oh, pocket 7s, I have overs. Do you get what I mean? But now with the Jack 10 suited, it is so much easier to play post-flop. Now you can flop flush draws, straight draws, overcards, 2 pairs, like there's everything. So when deciding what hands you want to play, you have to be thinking about how you can play it post-flop. Okay, so just simply seeing this, raise the Jack 10. If you don't want to raise the 7s, don't raise the 7s. This is fine because you're pretty deep, and 7s is not a bad hand to raise. And a lot of people are going to raise that, but looking at the Jack 10 fold versus the 7s, you need to understand post-flop playability because it is so much easier to play Jack 10 suited than it will be to play 7s. So we get to a flop here. We got a gut shot. We check around, and we let the ace get there, which is fine in this situation. I mean, there's multiple people. Me personally, with the gut shot here, knowing that there's multiple people on this board, I might have c-bet this flop with the thought of very simply narrowing the field. For me, c-betting here and getting past the chip vacuum behind, right, is a win because now I have position on the other 2 players for the remainder of the hand. I raised under the gun. By c-betting this board, I could still have aces, kings, sets, everything. But when I check this board, just like the example in the queen hand, when I check this board, I'm giving away a lot of information on this super wet coordinated board. What am I saying? I do not have aces. I do not have kings. I do not have a set when you check here. So just some things to consider. Call, defend. It's fine. I know we're folding that. We're folding this. We're folding this. I'm actually just even going to skip some of those. I know that we're for sure folding. We raise the jack, so we get called. Ace, ace, 10. We check. That is fine. We check. Check. I mean, at this point, look, we check the flop. That's fine. I get it. All right, if we had an ace, maybe we check the flop. We get to the turn 10, we check. At this point, when this person checks to us again, it's pretty unlikely that they have an ace. So we can bet here for sure if we wanted to. You know, for what? For what reason? Right? What worse hands are going to call us, things like that. King, queen might call. Queen, well, queen 10 obviously calling, but king, queen might call. King, jack is less likely, but it might call. Queen, jack less likely because we have jacks, might call. But yeah, you could bet, check. This is like a weird board, but anyway, check, check, and we win versus nothing. It's not a huge hand to take away much from there, but I think it's fine. We choose to raise the queen jack offsuit here over the limp. Okay, so we ISO the limp, which I think is fine to isolate a weaker player. So we'll just stick with that. That's fine. We check because we didn't hit. Bet the turn with for a quarter pot with the open-ended. Now here, I don't know what the thought process is, but when you bet a quarter pot here on this board, multi-ways, don't be surprised when you get called. And you need to be prepared to fire the river. Otherwise, this is some sort of cheap blocker bet, bluff, hope I get there type of thing. Like, honestly, your turn sizings should be much bigger here. If you had a king, now, let me put this to you, and this is another nice practice that you can do. If you had a king, what would you bet here on the turn? Are you betting a quarter with 2 flush draws, 2 straight draws? Are you betting a quarter? Most people's answers are going to be no. I'm betting bigger to protect my hand from all of that. All right? So if you want to represent a king here, bet bigger. You'd probably bet half to 2/3 pot here. I would bet 2/3 pot here to 3/4 pot in this situation all the time, not only with my open-ended straight draws, my kings, my gut shots, like everything that I'm betting here, the majority of the time, is going to be 2/3 pot on this turn. And I would advocate for that too here. You don't want to just invite in calls from a 5x, a deuce x, ace 3, jack 9, like all these hands you are giving an amazing price to get there and for your bluff to not work. And based on what I've seen, I think it's pretty unlikely that you follow through with river bets here. So that makes this turn bet sizing even more undesirable. All right, if you want a one pump and just bet one street here and give up the river, you better put some mustard on this bet here if you want to have any sort of success with it, because it is highly unlikely this gets folds. It doesn't, and then we do fire the river. It's good. We went to half pot sizing. I'm happy to see that at least. We get called by the king 9. We're not folding king 9 here, obviously, for most players, but at least we did fire the river. I think that's a positive. All right, we check see a flop. We flop a pair. We check call. They bet min. Okay, so calling on the flop. They bet a little over half pot. That's fine. What does this turn change? They bet minimum. All right, you need 9% right here. You can see you're getting almost 11 to 1 because this person is betting the minimum into a 400 chip pot about. You need 9% equity to continue. All right, and you don't need to understand what this means, but what this means is that basically you can call with anything here. All right, so there is, and just listen to this, you don't need to absorb this really, but so what are your outs here? Your outs are a 3 and a 5, okay? So let's assume 2 more 3s and 3 more 5s, right? That's 5 cards to help you, and there's even a very simple rule. If you're looking to hit one of your cards, you times it by 2 to like get the percent of equity that you would have. So with one more card to go, and just assuming a 3 and a 5 is outs, those are 5 cards times 2, that's 10% equity. So you have enough equity to call here, and that's assuming that you are behind at this point. You might even still be ahead when this person bets this amount. Okay, so we just cannot fold here for the minimum bet. Cannot. All right, so we got a limp, we ISO, that is good. They call, check, we bet, we get called, check. We check here, and I actually don't mind the check, but I don't know that our reasoning for checking here would be exactly the same. I like the check here because I would hate to get check raised and be in an awkward situation, but also by checking it's going to be much easier to get value from a king x and a 10x on the river, so that's why I like it. But if we're checking to, I guess, trap, it's like slightly different thoughts. I'd imagine we're checking to trap here. We bet half pot and then they do fold, but that's fine there. That one actually not too much to take away. Call, we do not bink. All right. So we choose to 3-bet the 9-7 suited here. So there's some randomness here. I don't really know what is inspiring you to take this 3-bet line here, especially considering the stats. Maybe it's just some random things that you're like, oh, I'll try to do it here and there. I actually don't mind a 3-bet since we are deep enough, 75 big blinds deep. As we get shorter, this is not going to be as desirable of a play. As we get shorter, we want to have blockers in our hand, meaning like an ace-x or a king-x, because then it's much less likely that our opponent is going to have a really big hand in that sense. So we ISO, we get min-click 3-bet basically from Slope Slayer. They see bet and we fold. Fine, Jack 10 offsuit, good fold. King Queen suited, we open. We check here. This is just a check fold. No backdoor clubs. Now this is a situation we talked about earlier, where thinking about what turn cards can help us. What turn cards help us here? There's no club on the flop. There's no backdoor straight draw. We literally just have overs here. What I believe is happening here in flow is that we're getting shorter. We missed. We're getting sick of missing. And we're getting a little bit stubborn here. That's exactly the vibe I'm on with this call here. And then we give them some free money on the flop, and then we give it away on the turn. So not good, not good, not good there. But I do like the check. It's just a check fold spot out of position. That's the problem with having a positional disadvantage is you're going to be checking a lot from out of position when you miss there. And we just have to be at peace with that. All right, so we get short stacked, we get a raise, re-raise, we get an aces. Obviously easy, we cooler the kings. All right, good fold. We raise the king queen, we get it through. We're sitting on 33 big blinds. If you are not paying attention at every single one of your decisions and basing it around the stack size, whether you raise a hand, whether you fold a hand, whether you play whatever hand it is, it all revolves around your stack size. So I hope that when you're getting the situations thinking and looking, you're always aware how deep you are, how deep the people you're raising past are. That stuff all matters. All right, so we raise the ace queen here. Not playing that, we're not playing that. Not playing that. Big blind. We're not playing that. Hello, there we go. Okay, so doing a bunch of folding here, 23 bigs. Yeah, we can, king 9 suited is getting close to being able to profitably raise there. Get jammed on, easy fold, ace 7. All right, we open, we get 3-bet here, and we fold. That is fine. Ace deuce is a raise fold there. That is a strategically sound play. Raise ace 3, flop top pair, c-bet, get called. Bet again. And I don't know what our thinking is here. I'd imagine we're calling at this point, but we have a lot of, well, obviously you mentioned in your email that you need some help post-flop and some things like that. But we have a lot of discrepancies in the hands we're playing, position we already discussed, but then now also bet sizing is another thing that needs a lot of reworking. So here, half pot, pretty standard, that's normal and fine. We get to this turn, and basically with the flop sizing, it looks like we're setting up a turn shove, but then for some reason they check and we are just like, hey, if you have a straight draw, if you picked up a flush draw, if you have any pair and you'd like a chance to improve, here's a really good price. Okay? You know what I mean? Like, no, you need to be going for max value. You have 2 pair. If they have an ace X, they're not folding. If they have draws, you do not want to be like, hey, look, I'm giving you the right odds. Like, go ahead, call, beat me. Okay, we need to be winning bigger pots. I don't understand what this sizing exactly is trying to accomplish. We bet the flop perfectly so that we could jam turn. We have less than 18 big blinds. So unless we're betting this turn small because we know they're going to blast off or something, you know what I mean? That is a deviation from what I would be thinking that you are thinking based on everything that I've seen so far. So just play straightforward, just jam here, don't get tricky. Obviously you have 2 pair you're calling off. They happen to have ace 10, we coolered them, it is what it is, but still, should have just be jamming the turn. We're overcomplicating things. And I know we're just trying to reel things in and figure stuff out, so I completely understand that. I'm just trying to give it, very straightforward. Let's see, raise, under the gun, we 3-bet. And then we are getting in, and I don't know what this person is doing with the 6-4. That is literally terrible. All right, let's go to the next one. FYI, this is close right here. whether we call or not, it's like 5 big blinds total. You're already in for 1. So it's 4 big blinds. You have ace-x. They can be shoving anything. For instance, let's just go here and do this. What hands are we shoving 5 big blinds, putting ourselves in their shoes? What hands are we shoving from under the gun with 5 big blinds? I will actually pull up my snap shove here real quick just to give an exact range that we're going to plug in, and we're going to see how ace deuce is doing versus what they shove here. And also a big consideration, they have 5 big blinds, you have 45. We can call here and it will not impact our stack basically at all. We can still do everything we wanted to do prior. So this is 9-handed. Let's see. All right, and big blinds are 5 and under the gun. So this range that people should be shoving, now not everybody is, it is every pair, every suited ace, ace-7 off, king-6 suited plus, here king-10 off plus, queen-9 suited, queen-10 off plus. These are all hands that this person with 5 big blinds should be shoving. Jack-9 suited plus, 10-8 suited plus, 9-8 suited. So these are the hands that from 5 big blinds should be getting shoved under the gun. Now, if you look here at the percentage, because their stack is so small, we only need 34% equity to make a profitable call. If it's exactly 34%, it's break even, but so let's just see how we're doing here. And again, another thing to consider stack sizes is we are not changing our stack situation. If we had 10 big blinds, calling off 5 is incredibly impactful. If we had 1,000 big blinds, calling off 5 is like a fly. It barely even like recognizes on our, we barely even recognize it. 45 is still similar. Like it's not going to change what we can and can't do. So let's see where we're at. So we run ace deuce versus that range, and you can see this is a clear call. We're at 40.76% with ace deuce versus this range. We only need 34%. It does not impact our stack adversely, so this is an easy call here. All right, we know we're not playing that. Not playing that. Queen 10 is a fine fold. If you feel like you have an edge at the table and you are confident post-flop, you can open it. Here is a situation, basically a min-raise. We should be defending this Jack-7 suited. Jack-7 offsuit, we can fold. Lots of folds, we know that. This is fold. Queens, we got a hand. Raise, a shove. We have 33 big blinds. This is an easy reshove. Okay. Good. Off to the races. We get unlucky. That's all right. Thankfully, it was versus a shorter stack. We have a late position raise and 21 big blinds there in the hijack. This is a shove. I don't know why we're doing this. 21 big blinds. Don't overcomplicate things. Just jam. 20 big blind, even up to, you can reshove to late position raises from the blinds with up to 30 big blinds. Okay, what hand you do that with will depend, but just to give you an idea, you can reshove up to 30 big blinds. 25, 20-ish is basically the standard 3-bet reshove kind of stack. Maybe this looks stronger, gets more people to fold, stuff like that, but for sure where you're at in poker right now, you do not want to overcomplicate things. You want to simplify things. You want to build a good foundation. You want to stick to your guns. You want to nail some things down and then grow from there. So they call, you miss, and now you're in a situation where you're like, oh man, I still have chips, and you've complicated things. You shove, that's fine, you get called, and I have no idea, is this a free roll? I'm not sure, but this call here is terrible. You know what I mean? So we get lucky here to get called by a worse hand to build up some chips. Don't overcomplicate it. Ace-4 suited, got a raise there. Easy raise. Now, counter argument to raising ace-4 suited here, but there's shove stacks behind. Looking at what people are doing at this table, these people are not shoving correctly. They're probably still calling. If they shove, you can fold. It's not a big deal. Raise folding is a profitable play against the right people. And in late position, if you studied, or when you do, because I don't imagine that you have at this point, but when you start to study like Masterclass courses and things like that, you will start to understand that raise folding is a profitable play in late position. With this range of hands, I'm raise calling with this range of hands versus these stack sizes. Do you know what I mean? I'm raising and four betting with these hands like it is. There is a structure. There is a range of hands that we can profitably raise and fold. Even though we are folding, it is a profitable right play. So this is one of them. You have to raise. But to get to the point that I'm talking about with some of those things and ranges and all this stuff, you have to get the foundation down. You have to keep things simple. And obviously it takes time to learn there, find the roadmap, and get to know that stuff. So I'm very conscious of that, but I'm just trying to feed you anything I can right now so that you can grasp. At the end of this video, I want to get a response from you via email, what questions you have, what hits you the most, blah, 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 to grow from there. I'm going to look for that. And actually, I was going to just drop both of these videos and send them to you, but I'm not now. I'm going to send you this first one. And then I actually, if you want to get more value out of these videos that we're doing, I'm going to send you this first one. I want you to look over it. I want you to take notes, and I want you to send an email response back to me. And then from there, I want you to play more hands. I want you to send me a new hand history, because the second video I want to be based off the adjustments you've made from this video. There's just too many glaring things that if I go look at this other video, do another review, it's going to be the same conversation, and it's just not max value. You're not going to grow that way. There's no point in me even doing that, because there's literally so much to work on this video that it would be a waste of both of our times for me to do the other one now. All right, so we decide to bet here, and then we pick up some equity, so we check. And now at this point, this person's double checking. They do not have a king here. They might have a jack. They very well could have a missed draw themselves. They could have a 6. If you're betting this flop and you want to continue to represent a hand, don't check the turn because you picked up a double gutty. All right, that's more of a reason just to bet. The double gutty is insurance. You want to continue to tell the story of, I have a king here. All right, if you had a king, what would you do here? You would bet flop. Probably not even the sizing, I'd imagine. You'd probably bet bigger. And then if you had a king on this turn, are you going to check it? No, you're probably going to bet again. So if you want to represent and tell a story, don't look at your hand. Think about what you want to have somebody else believe you have, if that's helpful. The fact that you picked up another straight draw is insurance for when you do get called on this turn again. But guess what? If you double barrel here, people will fold a bunch. Check, check. They have pocket 2s, and this is where it's painful when you're just trying to make hands. Okay? Don't play your cards, play the players. We raise and get it through. All right. Now we're folding there, we're folding here. We fold there. I would call, but I don't fault you for folding at this point in your game. That's the Jack-9 suited, of course. We get 6s here. We have 54. What happened? When did we get 54 big blinds? All right, there's a hand missing somewhere. Okay. So we raise, we call. Now, one thing to think about, this is not just, oh, I have chips, I can call, let's see if I spike a set. Again, we need to be able to win enough chips when we are set mining to negate all the times that we call and check fold. So fortunately in this pot, the person you're calling against has at least 42 big blinds, as you can see right here, and you have 54. So this is not bad, but we know what we're doing. Looking for a 6, we miss, okay, check. This guy checks, bets, and we're folding. So same story. We get aces, we raise, we get 3 bet, We decide to get tricky and call. It's fine. And we were just coolering them anyway. But still, don't get tricky. You are not in the stage right now where it is beneficial for you to get tricky. Big picture, not beneficial to get tricky for you right now. Trust me, people are making enough mistakes. If you just play straightforward and solid poker, you will make money. Overlimping here, I don't know why, but once we overlip, we leave ourselves open to getting exploited. I would isolate this player and go from there. Check, check. We bet half pot and we get snap folds. We don't need to bet half pot on this board texture. Sizings is another big conversation we need to have. Board textures like this, super dry, no real good draws, anything like that. You can bet a third pot. You can even check here. There's a club on the flop. You check. Any club is good for you. You would likely have the best hand. So betting is fine, but sizing definitely is a concern. All right, we get tens. We open the button. We do not need to raise this big on the button. We have positional advantage unless we're trying to build a pot. But at this point, by betting so big, we tell the small blind, hey, we are never folding to you. And it could discourage them shoving some hands we might want to be calling with tens. Okay. Now I'm noticing a thing here. We're betting a third pot or less when we don't have a favorable hand. When we had a king top pair in the other situation, and what was the... trying to think of that two pair hand. I actually think you bet smaller on that one, so that goes against the grain. But your two pair, you're betting small. Your weak hands, you're betting small, and then your one pair hand so far we've seen you're betting like half pots, just like shut it down. So I'm not sure where the sizing is coming from or the thoughts on the sizing, but we bet a third pot here or fourth pot here in a situation where if you had a queen, you're probably never betting a fourth pot. And then we just fold. So you might be just displaying to your opponents at some point if they're paying attention, and I'm not completely confident that people are paying attention in this tournament. You're just saying, hey, attack me. I would not bet this sizing with a big hand on this board texture. Not that that's necessarily what happened there, but we need to consider that. This is a super easy jam here. This person has 6 big blinds. Put them to the pressure. The hands that they're forced to play here, your Jack 10 is doing fine. If you lose, it is fine. This is a super plus EV call, and just jam here. We could be jamming here with 6 big blinds effective here, just to give you an idea how wide you should be jamming here with 6 big blinds from the small blind. And I'm saying I know you have 42 big blinds, but the effective stack is only 6 big blinds. All right, so that's what we need to be looking at, because you're only risking 6 big blinds. When I'm only risking 6 big blinds here in the small blind, what can I be shoving with? And even if you're shoving like 10 to 15, it is a wide range that you shove here. So just to give you an idea, 6 big blinds from the small, 8-handed. 79% of hands, okay? Pocket 2s plus, every ace, every king, every queen, every jack, almost every 10, 9-2 suited plus, 9-5 off plus, 8-3 suited plus. And you're looking at, you might be listening to this and be like, wow, that's a lot of hands. But just so you know, strategically, when I say plus EV, I'm talking about chips estimated winning in the situation by taking a play. So there's a positive expectation in chips for you strategically if you shove 79% of hands here. All right, the fact that you're calling Jack 10, are you trapping the 6 big blind stack? Are you being bashful? Are you not even paying attention? Are you watching TV? Something else is going on. You didn't even realize they only have 6 big blinds. But if you want to get better at poker, which I'm assuming you are, which is why you came to me, you need to be focused. You cannot be distracted. And in case that's going on here, I need to tell you now, you will not get to where you want to go. I can give you gold on gold. If you are playing distracted and you're not implementing and thinking about what we're talking about, you're wasting your money and you are not getting the most value out of this. Okay, that's something I just want to throw out there. Check, check. We bet. Fortunately, we take it down. But honestly, in this last hand, if this is a thinking player, check, you check there, you bet this turn versus me, you don't have an ace. You don't have aces. All right, I don't believe you here. This person jams, you're in a spot. You might call because you have enough chips, but still. You got to think about the stories you're telling. Everybody's jamming an ace there if they're paying attention from the small blind. If you had an ace there, you might have actually noticed and jammed. But you maybe, again, I'm just kind of manufacturing some things that I've seen in myself and other students that could be possible. So I think we will notice when we have an ace X in the small blind versus Jack 10. It's like, oh, mediocre hand, let's see a flop. You might not even notice the stack. But if you see ace X, you're like, oh, okay. Oh, then you look at the stack size. Oh, he's short. Okay, I'm just going to go all in. So yeah, that's why you don't have an ace there a lot of the time in that last situation, and neither do they. They would have shoved. We raise the king jack, we get 3 bets, and we fold. Raise the queen jack here. You really don't necessarily need to raise queen jack off from early positions here at all, especially as your stack's getting shorter. It's a bit too loose and aggressive. Also, folding king jack here would be good. So need to look into opening ranges that you should be doing, because we know that we are unsure of what hands we should be opening from where. But you should take a piece of paper out. You should write down by positions, early position, middle position, late position, get on YouTube, study videos, and get an idea of what you want to open from where. Need to look at your shoving ranges. Google a Nash shoving chart. It will show you what I just looked at and how I told you 79% from the small blind you can shove. That information is all readily available on the internet. 35 big blinds on the button with queen 9 offsuit. That is a raise. All right, so we're folding. We get a raise from death trips. We're folding. All right, so we are just looking for our all-in hand here, I'd imagine. This person shoves. Your ace X is definitely worth thinking about there, but I don't want to get into that with you right yet. All right, let's see here. 10 big blinds from middle position with ace 4. Let's get an idea here. We are sitting a 9-handed. We have 10 bigs. And we are +2. Yep, +2. And we ace deuce suited. So any suited ace we shove here, and ace 8 offsuit. So it's a good fold. Just to give you an idea though. Here, this is 1,000,000% a call. Let's see what happens. Okay, good. You can see what this guy's shoving from the small blind. We just talked about this. You can be shoving very wide and should be. Like, this isn't like, oh, look at this donk is shoving 10-4 suited from the small blind. When I see this, I'm like, this guy understands their ranges. This is an aggressive-minded opponent. They get it. There's going to be people who look at this and see this 10-4 suited and say exactly what the first thing was, and then there's going to be the better thinking players who go, okay, he gets it. Do you see what I'm saying? Call and fold. All right, 19 bigs. We can definitely raise the ace 5 suited. Can probably jam it as well, actually. Late position open from a aggressive opponent that we already know. Ace 5 here, I would jam versus this person. They're just going to be folding a ton. We've already seen that we know that they're aggressive. All right, deuces here, 16 big blinds in middle position. Right, this is low jack actually. Let's take a look. 16 bigs. We are sitting 8-handed and we are in the low jack. So just to give you an idea, this is close actually. Shove chart says to shove 3s plus here. And it is unexploitable. You will be making chips by doing these unexploitable shoves. Ace Jack here, 14 bigs. We're overcomplicating things again here. Now, there is some value in doing what you're doing, but you are not there yet, in my opinion, okay? Thinking from a growth standpoint, keeping things together, not having things all over the place. This is something that is going to be detrimental to your big picture by overcomplicating things here. Yes, this can look like we're creating fold equity and that, oh, this is strong, this guy's never folding, blah, 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 but this is not where you want to be in terms of growth right now with these tricky plays. Shove here. Fortunately, you hit the flop, they call, and they had that, but again, it's all just fortunate. You need to shove there. It doesn't matter if they would have folded and blah, 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 blah. None of that matters. Not right now. All right, so let's see here. So now we're going to blind down for a while and then have to get it in. 9-7 suited, we should not be calling here. Yes, it's pretty, but we are too short stacked. We hit a favorable flop again, and then we fold when we hit favorable flop versus a big stack, probably late position or an aggressive opponent who it gets checked to. Why would they not fire here? They bet small here as well. I even like a peel more than a fold. Like if you're going to call here and you flop one of your like top tier type of flops, how are we not calling when someone gives us an amazing price here? So just don't call pre-flop. I mean, if you're not even going to call when you hit a top tier flop for your hand, flop to pair in an open-ended straight draw. All right. $15 bigs here. Let's take a look at it because these are things that you absolutely need to be aware of your shoving ranges. 9-handed, 15 bigs, under the gun. Ace-9 suited plus, Ace-Jack off plus for shoving here. Alright, let's see here. We're not going to play any of these. Let's see. Folds to us. Okay, no. This person, if you haven't noticed yet, Sharon's BR is limping everything. That should be somebody you look to jam with your medium strength hands over their limps because they're just going to be folding a bunch, especially if you're looking to pick up chips. Sevens is an easy shove. We get called and we bank the river. Raise get called. C-bet small. And then here, I do not know what we're doing. I mean, this might work. This is a complete overplay. Seriously, like, this is a complete overplay. And if we get called to blast off. Now, we need to think about this. What are we trying to accomplish? By shoving over the size of the pot with 2 overcards there, we're basically turning our hand into a bluff. And do we know why? Are we trying to get a jack to fold here? Are we trying to get a queen to fold, which is not going to happen if they have a queen? So what are we trying to accomplish here by just jamming? Honestly, you could bet 7K here and accomplish the same thing without having to risk your stack. All right, another thing you could have did is actually betting small on this board texture here is actually fine. But I believe that where the betting small is coming from is not correctly placed. So I think we're betting here because we have an over, we're unsure, we don't want to risk too much, and that's not the reason to be doing this. The reason to be betting a third pot here is because of the board texture, and we'll be able to continue and manage the pot easier, among other things. But we check, we overjam here, and they do fold, but they had nothing. We got them to fold a 6 or pocket 7s there. 18 big blinds with pocket 4s. Yeah, we got it through, but guess what? When we get called, every single board sucks. We only hit a set 10% of the time, less than that. Maybe it's 11 or something, 11% or less, whatever. And the 90+% of the time, when we miss, we're check folding. And we're also just destroying our 20 big blind stack. We're making 2.5 big blinds, or 18. We're going down to 15.5 in a situation where we're forced to c-bet bluff to win the pot, or we're just giving up all the time because we miss. Our hand doesn't improve unless we hit a 4 specifically. We need to be folding these small pairs, especially when the stack sizes are getting smaller. From an earlier position, literally should, for the most part, not even be playing these hands. Okay. I'm just being real passionate about some of these spots, by the way. We get a shove, and then we call. It's fine, but are we overcomplicating things again? I don't know. Let's see here. Okay, ace king. We raise, we get it through. We're not playing that, not playing that. Big blind. We get a raise from a 44 big blind stack. We decide to defend from 30 bigs. That's fine. Check, check, call. River, check, check, you win. Okay, we should be tossing in there for the other half a blind. We're not playing that. All right, so we go here. We got to fold small blind. We can jam over this button open if we wanted. They only have 22 big blinds, but we're going to fold. Fold. Let's look at this. We decide to raise. We get called twice. We bank a flop. We bet small here. Totally fine. It's actually good on that board. Raise the ace jack. That's better than the 4s. Call them in raise. They bet pretty big, and we hit a pair, and we fold. I don't know why. We should at least be calling 1 here, unless we have a super specific read that this person only bets when they have it. But they min raise from the small blind. They're going to c-bet a high percentage of the time when people raise. They're going to c-bet and over c-bet. Obviously, you are not, but you cannot project that onto other players that they're playing and thinking the way you are, because the majority of players are not playing the way and thinking that you are. You're playing way too tight. So whatever your thoughts are, please do not project those on other players. All right. We will continue here, not playing that. Maybe plays this. Okay, even ace 10 folding there under the gun would be fine. All right, we have a 94 big blind stack. We have 28 big blinds. They raise. C-bet, or the 3-bet sizing here, way too small, out of position. As a general guide, you want to be going 4x, so you should be making it at least 24, or 4 times 7, what is that, 3, 7, 21, 28? Right, you should at least be making it 28K here, because you don't want to just welcome them to call with any single hand that they have. They're a big stack. They're going to be calling you more. You're going to be out of position in a bloated pot. You're going to miss the board 2/3 of the time, which we mentioned earlier, and then you're going to be like, what do I do? All right, so we need to consider that. We already know sizings are off. Bailed out by the deck again. We hit top pair, backdoor flush draw. We bet, they call. We get down to the river, and we decide to jam. I don't know if, I think some of these post-flop things we're just jamming and doing things because we don't know what else to do, which is fine. I believe that you're at that stage, but I'm pointing it out so that you can be much more conscious of it. What are you trying to accomplish here by jamming? You bet flop turn, and now you're jamming the river, hoping they're fold, because I feel like I've been here before and I can relate to the emotion of this moment, but it's like, oh man, that sucks. I'm going to jam and just hope they fold, and there's literally no other reasoning behind it. But we end up getting called, and they had pocket 10s, so they did get there. It sucks, but we gave them, let's see, a spectacular price on this flop. Look at the draws, look at the spades, things like that. I know we have to work on sizings, and there's a bunch of things that are all over the place. You have a lot of room for improvement, so don't feel down about the stuff that I've said or anything. The way you should be interpreting everything I'm saying is that you have a lot of room to improve, and that is a positive thing. Okay, especially if you're not winning yet. So there's a lot of places that you can work on things. I have definitely highlighted them. Understanding position, what hands you should be opening from what position and stack size, Bet sizing is another thing, and then putting yourself in some your opponent's shoes are some big things that I would start to think about here.